It was a quiet Sunday morning in Hawaii. Sailors were still asleep below deck, and families were getting ready for church. No one suspected anything was wrong, but in the sky, engines were roaring closer. Within minutes, the sky would explode. By the end of the day, thousands would be dead, and America's future would change forever. This is the story of December 7th, 1941, the day the world went to war. In 1941, the United States was not yet at war. Most Americans wanted nothing to do with the fighting overseas, even though World War II had already been raging for 2 years. Germany had conquered much of Europe, and Britain stood almost alone against Hitler's forces. But across the Pacific, another storm was building. Japan had been expanding its empire for years, invading China in search of resources and power. The United States strongly opposed this aggression and responded with heavy economic sanctions, cutting off oil exports to Japan completely. For Japan, this was a devastating blow. Without oil, its military machine could not survive. Japanese leaders faced an impossible choice: give in to America's demands or go to war. They chose war, and their target was clear: the United States Pacific Fleet based at Pearl Harbor.
Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto devised a bold strategy. He believed a surprise attack could cripple America's Navy before the United States could even react. For months, Japanese pilots trained in complete secrecy, rehearsing low-altitude torpedo runs again and again. Every detail of Pearl Harbor was studied closely, and spies gathered information on ship positions and schedules. The plan required extreme precision and timing. A massive fleet was assembled in total silence. 6 aircraft carriers set sail across the Pacific, maintaining strict radio silence the entire journey. American intelligence had no idea what was coming. The fleet moved undetected for nearly 2 weeks, and by December 6th, they were dangerously close to Hawaii. The final orders were given. At dawn, the planes would launch.
At 6 a.m., the first Japanese planes lifted off. 183 aircraft climbed into the sky, while below them, Pearl Harbor still slept peacefully. On the ships, sailors prepared for a normal Sunday. At 7:53 a.m., the order was given: Tora, 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 the code word for total surprise. Moments later, the first bombs began to fall. Explosions tore through the harbor without warning. The USS Arizona took a direct hit to its ammunition stores, and in seconds, over 1,000 sailors were gone. Fire and smoke filled the morning sky as sailors scrambled desperately to battle stations. Some were thrown into burning, oil-covered water. Anti-aircraft guns finally roared to life, but it was already too late to stop the first wave. A second wave of aircraft arrived shortly after, targeting airfields, hangars, and remaining ships. American planes were destroyed before they could take off. The battleship USS Oklahoma capsized within minutes, trapping hundreds of sailors inside its hull. Rescue crews worked frantically to cut through steel, while on the base, civilians ran for shelter. No one had expected the war to reach their shores. By 9:45 a.m., the attack was finally over. In under 2 hours, the damage was catastrophic. 8 battleships were damaged or destroyed. Over 2,400 Americans were killed, and nearly 20 American vessels were sunk or crippled. It was one of the deadliest mornings in American history.
Amid the chaos, ordinary sailors became heroes. Doris Miller, a mess attendant, manned an anti-aircraft gun, even though he had never been trained to use one. He fought back against the attacking planes anyway, and his courage later earned him the Navy Cross. Rescue boats raced through burning water to save survivors. Sailors pulled drowning men from the wreckage. Doctors and nurses worked without rest for days, and civilians opened their homes to the wounded. Bravery was found in every corner of the harbor.
The next day, President Roosevelt addressed the nation. He called it a date which will live in infamy. Congress declared war on Japan almost immediately, and just days later, Germany and Italy declared war on America. The United States was now fully committed to World War II. Factories across the country shifted to wartime production. Millions of Americans enlisted to fight, and women stepped into factories to keep the nation running. The attack united a divided nation overnight,
and Pearl Harbor became a rallying cry for the entire country.
More than 2,000 men never made it home that day. Their sacrifice changed the fate of the entire world. History teaches us that peace is never guaranteed. It must always be protected and never taken for granted. Pearl Harbor will always be remembered, not just as a tragedy, but as a turning point in history.